Welcome to your midweek Cybersecurity Executive Briefing, brought to you by Clock Tower Technology Services and the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm Brian Sulo, your virtual CISO for the next 15 minutes. My company is Clock Tower Technology Services, and we provide IT, telecom, and information security services to businesses with 10 to 100 employees. But this is not a sales pitch, so if you want to learn more about what we do and how we do it, give me a call, send me an email, or catch me on LinkedIn. Today is Wednesday, November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving in the US, and it's time for cybersecurity news and takeaways that you can use in your business today. I'll keep the InfoSec jargon to a minimum, but if there's anything you don't understand, please ask me to clarify at the end of the presentation if you're attending live, or in the comments section if you're watching the recording. Now, let's get to this week's news. Website host GoDaddy last week discovered a breach that had been ongoing since early September. An intruder managed to steal over 1 million email addresses and customer numbers for subscribers to GoDaddy's managed WordPress service. Additionally, the intruder obtained the initial passwords and other sensitive information for each account. GoDaddy has taken steps to force password changes, but there's no indication whether the stolen credentials were used to compromise customer sites. Additionally, the stolen email address and customer numbers will likely be sold and can be used to craft convincing phishing messages to those customers. If you host a WordPress site with GoDaddy, be extremely wary of any email messages that purports to be from them. I don't generally bring up Microsoft Exchange Server on this briefing because most of our audience members don't run an in-house mail server, and we in fact recommend against it. I was talking last week, though, to someone who is considering migrating their email from Microsoft 365 to an on-premises Exchange server. This story from The Record is just one example of why we don't recommend self-hosted email for small organizations. Cybercriminals are continuing to breach corporate email Exchange servers and use them as platforms to send phishing emails to external and internal recipients. I want to read a quote from the end of the article that makes the point pretty succinctly. Quote, "Patching Exchange servers is one way of keeping systems safe, but there are countless other Exchange bugs that could be abused as an entry point, so keeping Exchange servers up to date with security patches at all times is recommended." End quote. The trouble is that with any complex system such as Microsoft Exchange, keeping it up to date and secure is a specialty that requires a breadth and depth of knowledge, as well as considerable time. It's very easy to break the system or leave it vulnerable through an innocent misconfiguration. This is one of those tasks that's better left to the professionals. To underscore that thought, just this week, there is a patch that is needed immediately to prevent a different remote code execution vulnerability. In another article from The Record, a recent Microsoft study showed that attackers attempting to guess passwords, what we call a brute force attack, do not generally attempt to guess longer passwords. According to the study, 30% of all guesses are 6 characters in length, and 77% are between 1 and 7 characters. Additionally, only 7% of the attempts included a special character, and none included a space. We recommend that passwords for privileged accounts, those with admin-level access, contain 16 characters, and passwords for non-privileged accounts, that's everyday user accounts, contain 12 characters. Why so high? Because attacks only ever get better. Also, a long minimum password length encourages naturally complex passwords, even if they're easy to remember. This is also where a good password manager comes in handy. And if you're ever stuck looking for a good, secure password that's easy to type, you can check out our easy type password generator at clocktowertech.com/passwords. Krebs on Security details a bank fraud scam and how it works. From the article, quote, Scammers are blasting out text messages about suspicious bank transfers as a pretext for immediately calling and scamming anyone who responds via text. Here's what one of those text scam messages looks like. Anyone who responds yes or no, or at all, will very soon after receive a phone call from a scammer pretending to be from the financial institution's fraud department. The caller's number will be spoofed so that it appears to be coming from the victim's bank. To verify the identity of the customer, the fraudster asks for their online banking username and then tells the customer to read back a passcode sent via text or email. In reality, the fraudster initiates a transaction, such as the forgot password feature on the financial institution's site, which is what generates the authentication passcode delivered to the member. An important aspect of this scam is that the fraudsters never even need to know or phish the victim's password. By sharing their username and reading back the one-time code sent to them via email, the victim is allowing the fraudster to reset their online banking password. End quote. The criminals are always coming up with new creative ways to scam people. A continuous security awareness training program helps keep your people up to date with the latest techniques. And in some dire news from bleepingcomputer.com, a new privilege elevation exploit was released this week that allows any Windows user to get system privileges. So first, a few definitions. Privileges refer to the operations a user account is allowed to perform on a given system. We typically refer to user privileges, admin privileges, and system or root privileges. User privileges include running installed programs and accessing files belonging to that user account. Admin privileges include things like installing new programs, modifying other user accounts, etc. And system privileges are a step above admin, allowing anything to be done that can be done. A privilege escalation vulnerability is a bug that allows a user account to perform actions that they should not be able to perform. In order for a privilege escalation vulnerability to be useful, the attacker must already be in control of an account that has lower privileges. They can then use the vulnerability to get higher privileges than that account should allow. In this case, the attacker could be an employee, but more likely it's an outside threat actor who has managed to coerce an employee into running something that gives them control. There is currently no patch for this vulnerability, but there is a working proof of concept, so this is a very active threat right now. We expect Microsoft will release a patch on the second Tuesday of December. Until then, there's not much that can be done except to make sure your other security controls are in place and working. Finally, 'tis the season of short weeks and hectic days. Your staff is feeling the pressure to get things done before vacation, before the holidays, and before the end of the year. They're also feeling the pressure of last-minute shopping, waiting for deliveries, and everything else that goes along with this time of year. It's a perfect opportunity for cybercriminals. The number of phishing emails rises drastically in November and December, and so does the number of victims. A successful phishing attack can result in financial fraud, ransomware, or plenty of other nasty outcomes that can cost you a lot of money. To help reinforce your employees' secure behaviors, we've developed the A.E.I.O.U. method of phishing prevention. The truth is that your employees probably can't tell the difference between a legitimate message and a well-crafted phishing message simply by looking at it. The A.E.I.O.U. method doesn't rely on your employees' proofreading abilities. Rather, it helps them develop a mental habit that allows them to detect phishing attempts naturally. You can download a printable version of this poster at clocktowertech.com/download/AEIOU.pdf. So let me just run through this quickly since we have some time. The A.E.I.O.U. method relies on 5 questions that everyone should ask when they receive an email. And the first question kind of is the gating question for the rest of them. So, is there a requested action? So phishing messages usually want you to take some sort of action. Opening a file, signing into a website, resetting a password, transferring money, or allowing somebody access to your system. So if there is a requested action with the email, even if it seems innocuous, that's the time to move into the next 4 questions. Did I expect this message? So you want to make sure, ideally, that you expected this message from this source. So just getting like a password reset message that looks like it's from a legitimate source, if you didn't expect a password reset message from that source, then that's something to question. If you didn't expect a message from your boss telling you to transfer money or give somebody access to something, that's suspect. So the third question is, will I disclose information? So is taking the requested action going to provide some sort of sensitive information to someone, like a password or an account number, or any sort of sensitive information about your company, about yourself, or about an account? If so, that's another flag to think that this might be suspect. How do you verify that the message is official? So one important way to thwart phishing attempts is through verification, to make sure that the message is actually legitimate through other channels. So one thing you can't do is you can't simply reply to the message or call a phone number that's in the message, because if the message is a phishing attempt, then the bad guys already have control of that address that you're replying to or the phone number that you're going to call. You need to stop, look up contact information for that contact that you have already, and use that. And then finally, is the message urgent? So an enhanced level of urgency, a time limit, or an elevated tone, an angry tone or something like that, those are frequently used to trick a victim into taking action that they normally wouldn't do. Now, this can be tough if you've got a hard boss who is frequently aggravated and sends emails that have that kind of a tone. And this is where a lot of the business email compromise happens. Somebody gets an email that looks like it's from the owner of the company or from their boss, and all they want to do is get the thing done and not have to deal with the boss. And they end up taking an action that they should never have done without verifying that it was legitimate. Also, anything that sounds urgent, like your account will be locked out if you don't do this, or you need to do this today to keep from losing your password. All of those things are red flags that say, check this out before you do anything. So again, like I said, if you want to get a downloadable copy of this, you can go to clocktowertech.com/download/AEIOU.pdf. And that's your cybersecurity executive briefing for this Thanksgiving week. Before we get into the Q&A section, I just want to mention that the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Remember that the stories presented are selected to be relevant to our audience based on the technologies you've said you're using. If you're using other technologies in your organization and you'd like those covered, please let me know. If you're watching this after the fact and you want to be a part of the next live session, visit clocktowertech.com/cxb.html and register for the next call. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting us know what you learned or what could have been more clear. Until next time, stay safe, stay in touch. Together, we are secure.